I think there's an app or there's a platform that was used by the Singaporean government. It's like contact tracing. It's an app that uses Bluetooth and GPS, so that people who have been either infected or under investigation or under monitoring can be easily traced um, via their smartphones. And I think that's the best way. If
A Kangaroo Fern production.
Welcome
to Guerrilla Podcast, Fresh Eyes,
the beat that makes you feel good.
a weekly podcast that features interviews with social change leaders or individuals that aims to bring audiences good stories to motivate their own social impact efforts. Now, here's your host.
Hello, Humanista. This is Miko Santos from the Side Strip, and please welcome to Fresh Eyes, a member of Guerrilla Podcast Network. I'm so excited with this week episode, but before that, please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. If you want to sponsor, please email us at info@kangaroofirm.com or go to the patreon.com/kangaroofirm. Our special guest for today is Abe Olandres. He is the founder of YugaTech. YugaTech is the largest and longest running technology site in the Philippines. Originally established in October 2002, and the site has been transformed into a full-fledged technology site in 2005. Welcome to the show, Abe.
Hi, Miko. Glad to be part of this podcast. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your time today. Even what's happening now in the situation. Everything is locked down. Even in Australia right now, it's locked down as well. So enhanced quarantine. They don't want to say that lockdown, just enhanced quarantine.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about YugaTech and describe how did you first get into blogging?
Well, actually, this has started like almost 2 decades ago, right? Because during that time, after I graduated, the internet was just starting in the Philippines. So like starts up like Yehe.com, Pinay Exchange, and
Yeah.
the ABS-CBN portal, Pinay Central. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So, but basically, I'm a back-end guy. I'm more of I have a background in chemistry and computer engineering, so I'm not really that into like blogging per se. For the most part, what the industry that I got into was more on like programming. And actually, the first like online venture that I got into was doing web hosting for blogs. So that was my first like online business back in 2002, and that introduced me into blogging. I've known a lot of people who just started to get into blogging, but I said to myself, I'm really not that type of guy who enjoys writing or is really good. I'm not really good at writing. Way back then, I flunked English in high school. I got a very low grade in English in college. So the last thing I wanted to get into was writing. So most of the part, it's basically like how to set up blogspot blogs or your standalone domain sites. So that was the thing that I got into during the early years of my blogging. Actually, still have like copies of archives of my old website back then. Before it was actually called YugaTech. And for the most part, I actually, even before WordPress was founded in 2004 or something like that, I actually created my own blogging software, blogging platform that I used on my own website. So it's more of like a portfolio website or a resume website rather than a blog. And it's more of like, for me, writing is more like practicing my English or learning, new words, or parang making sure that I learn a word or two a week and I use it in my journal. It's called journaling before. So that's how I got into the idea of blogging or professional blogging.
Yeah, it's just during that time it's .com. You get your CT, so Friendster.
I
So
had
it's a long
I had
time.
I had my journal on hypermart.net.
Oh yeah.
Remember
Uh,
Hypermad? And there were a few services that offer free.com.net. You just need to add their own banner ad. It's like an iframe that you put a banner ad at the bottom of the site, and it will give you a free .com or the .net back then. So I took advantage of that and learned almost everything on the internet. So I'm more of a an internet entrepreneur, if you might look at it that way. A lot of the freelancing gigs that I did was mostly on the internet, like doing web design, doing web development, mostly like that. And blogging was just like an afterthought for me. I did not get into the idea of blogging as a business, as a career until like 3 years later.
so what inspired you to start your blogging, the YugaTech?
So it's mostly when I started out YugaTech, it was mostly a portfolio website in order for me to showcase, my work, my portfolio for potential clients in web designing and programming. And then a small section of that website I dedicated as an online journal. And later on, when WordPress came out, I shifted my entire website from my own back end, which was very crappy back then, but it works, into a WordPress website. And the format changed into a blog format rather than a static website. So that was like my introduction into the idea of maybe I should get into blogging or journaling on a regular basis. So almost every day back then, almost every day I would make sure that I would write one entry every day. I can count in with one hand, the times where I forget or I missed a day of not blogging. But the topics that I covered back then was mostly lifestyle, personal blogging. It ranges from blogging about what I eat, where we went to, places that we visit, and some personal, of course, personal musings, personal thoughts on stuff. But it was not really long form. It's mostly like maybe a paragraph, two paragraphs, 100, 200 words, just so that I get that discipline or um, uh, that rhythm of being able to really publish an entry every single day. And back then, you really know who your audience are because they're mostly your friends, your colleagues, or maybe relatives who would actively leave a comment. So it was like a small public newsletter of sorts. So you get to really interact with your readers because these are people who come to your site almost every day or regularly and interacting with you.
So with the big audience of YugaTech, so you got 346,000 followers in Facebook, 13,000 K in Twitter, and 354,000 in YouTube. How do you manage the time to run your blog efficiently?
Back then, I remember I parang I only my only time off was really to eat or sleep. I would work my ass off 16 hours a day, sometimes even up to 20 hours, just making sure that I'd be the first one to report on stuff that is not normally reported by traditional media or even online sites such as like maybe Inquirer or Philstar or ABS-CBN. So it's more for me to address a gap that a lot of the existing publications, really the big ones, are not addressing. So in a way, it became my lifestyle. I make sure that I'm always on top of things, that I'll always go out there and look for stories that have human interest in the technology landscape. And I understand that there are a lot of people looking for this type of content that is not being addressed in the local industry. And it was only much, much later on where I realized there's so many platforms that needs to be updated. There's so many stories that need to be covered. A lot of new products that come out that I need to review. So we would do somewhere between 20 to 25 full reviews every month, and I realized that I cannot do it alone. So in 2012, I decided to actually hire full-time contributors to the site to help me. Originally, I had two people working full-time for me. They work from home. And then this year, we already scaled up to 15 full-time contributors on for the site and for our YouTube channel. So majority of that, around 60 to 70%, would be involved in producing videos for a YouTube channel and for our Facebook followers as well. Our target is somewhere between like 10 to 11 videos a week. So that's actually more than one video per day. But earlier this year, we also launched a second channel, which is YugaTech Gaming, and that's dedicated purely for gaming fans. So we, in a way, we expanded our offering, our content offering horizontally, and making sure that we narrowed down a new channel for specific, niche industries such as gaming. And gaming is big in the Philippines, especially mobile gaming.
So, how big is the gaming industry in the Philippines? If you are doing a second channel now from YugaTech, is the more on
Mostly,
technology? Yeah.
well, mostly currently in the last 2 or 3 years, I would say mobile gaming is really huge. That I think we're somewhere between number two or number three in Southeast Asia in terms of like percentage of the population, and that is also evident with a lot of the tournaments. Both locally and regionally. We even have gaming as our esports as part of the ASEAN Games recently, right? So we think that that is a huge niche that needs to be tapped into. We understand that there are a lot of content creators in the gaming scene, the streamers, um, the YouTubers and the like, but we want to complement that with a different strategy based on our experience and our learnings from the existing subscribers that we have on YouTube.
So you're saying a strategy. So what do you think is the best strategy that work well for you to get more traffic to your blog, like YugaTech?
We really focus on evidence-based content ideation. That means we always look at feedback of a lot of our existing subscribers or existing fans and look at which type of content or which topics that they really need from us, and we consolidate that, and we brainstorm among the members of the team in order to produce uh, that type of content that also adheres to our branding, our style of branding, so it does not veer away from the original vision and mission that we have. And at the same time, we always make sure that we approach it in a way that is not just a me too approach. We wanted to add our own style, our own treatment to the content, so that we add to the existing library or existing pool of content that's already out there. People have been producing a lot of content, so it could be the topic or the concept, but also the delivery.
Is there any challenging moments on your blogging journey so far from 2002 to now?
Doing videos would be getting into videos would be, I would say, the second like biggest challenge we've had in the last like 2 decades, because when I started out in 2002, I was really meant into doing like written form, and that's where I got used to, and that's where we're really good at. That's our core competency. But in 2012, we realized that video is starting to get a lot of traction, especially that the internet, the broadband penetration in the Philippines is growing. And at the same time, the audience in the video, or especially like particularly on YouTube, is actually different. There's no zero sum formula there. So our audience on YouTube is basically very unique compared to our audience on the website. So we think that expanding the reach of the site is much better. It's easier for us to transition to videos. And we've seen that a lot of people, especially for long form, they would prefer audio-visual type of content, which and video is really at the heart of that. And we've seen the growth of our audience on YouTube is way faster than the growth that we have either on Facebook or on the site itself. And we're also able to cater to global audience, especially for types of content or products that are Asian first releases, and that's something that we really bank on in terms of like getting more expanding our audience outside of the Philippines.
All right. How do you motivate yourself with this? A lot of you have a team. How do you motivate yourself to keep blog up, or if there's something new technology coming up, like you said,
That
video
is
is
always a challenge. And that is always a challenge, especially that we already have a really sizable team for YugaTech, and we always look back and look at the core values that why we got into blogging or why we got into online publishing, and that is because we want to serve our audience, that every single day when our readers, our audience, our viewers, they wake up, they would go to the site or they would check out our channel. And that is something that in a way fuels our passion and fuels the motivation to deliver because people are expecting from us. So in a way, that's like fuel for passion for us, that our readers, we're really connected with our readers in making sure that what they want, what we provide is something in line with what they want.
did you realize by this passion that you making money through online?
That would be the last thing that actually imagined, because I've been doing this. When I started out, I was doing this for 5 years and not making a single cent. It was just me um, learning stuff on the internet and sharing it with people who might be interested in the same industry as I am, and that is tech. So when I started out, and the way I write, the way I produce content, it's more like me talking and just chatting with friends who have the same passion or the same interest as me. So it's like sitting down, having a cup of coffee or having a round of beer with friends and just talking and talking about things that really interest you. And that's our tone. And that's the way we started out when I started out blogging. And monetization or running a business was actually the last thing that I really thought of. I remember even telling myself, because I've known a lot of successful bloggers back then, and I said, blogging might be for them because they're really good writers, they're eloquent with what they think, and they can translate their ideas into written form. And that's not me. That's not my cup of tea. But I guess after years and years of just doing this, just trying to improve yourself and trying to communicate. This is not about writing or editing videos. This is about effectively communicating to your audience, and that is our business: communicating and engaging with our audience. And the money just came in. It's like, for me, it's icing on the cake. I would always tell my team that even if one day this does not become a viable business already, that there's no more money in blogging or doing videos, I would still be doing this. I would still be doing this.
Anyway, what do you do in your spare time? So do you still do something aside from blogging?
I think I remember almost a year ago, I thought like I gave myself some sort of a timeline that I tell my team, I think by this time I should be more hands off in the operation of the company, of the team, so that I pass on the responsibility. and the helm to the team members who've been with me for the longest time. Our managing editor has been with me for more than 7 years already. It's been there. He's like employee number two, and he's been with me until now. And I told him that, I hope that one day you'd be confident and prepared enough to take over as editor in chief. And I wanted to lay low and pursue other things. And one thing that also came to mind was that, was it a fluke? Was it an accident? Or was it, timing that got me into this kind of business? So in a way, I would venture into other non-related ventures just to see if I still have it. I still have that mindset of an entrepreneur. I got into farming. I got into a lot of other things. And just to make sure that, do I still have that acumen or that entrepreneurial spirit? But for the most part, I would say I'm like 50%. I'm like semi-retired. Just enjoying. I told my team I've been doing this for 2 shifts, one in the morning, one in the evening, for more than 15 years. I think I deserve some sort of a me time by now.
Yeah, that's a long time. Because I was speaking to Asra a couple of weeks ago. He's saying, I've been doing the blogging probably almost 20 years now, 19 years now. So he was also thinking of maybe I'm going to retire as well after 20 years because I've been doing this for a long time. But he's looking as well to a different aspect of blogging. So maybe you got the same mindset as well. So the next question I have, I already asked this to Azrael as well, Coladelia. Can you name some of your favorite bloggers and explain why they are your favorites?
Well, one of the biggest influence why I got into blogging when I started out would be ProBlogger.net. Darren Rose, he's Australian. Actually, I read his blog almost every day. Actually, when I started out like really concentrating on blogging, actually formatted my style from him, because he was more like, how to grow your blog, how to engage audience, how to ideate, how to look into concepts. So until now, I no longer read his blog. I don't have time to read a lot of sites. But I always looked up to him. Actually, he was the first guy that gave me the idea that maybe blogging could be for me. He posted this story about the house that blogging bought back in 2005, 2006. So that was parang like a eureka moment for me, that maybe blogging can be a serious thing, even especially in the Philippines, right? Today, I would look at a lot of the YouTubers like Unbox Therapy or Dave 2D, Canadian, the Chinese guy from Canada. But I look at them and I see, I see myself, especially LTT, Linus Tech Tips.
Yep.
I always talk to my team and tell them that, one day maybe would be as big as LTT, or, at least LTT of the Philippines. So I always look at his passion, his drive. It not really on the type of content that they have, but more on the drive of the person behind the channel or behind the site that really motivates me, that really ignites, excitement for me and my team. And we always, brainstorm on things that what can we do to make ourselves different and to make our audience more excited with the things that we do, and not just be, a Me Too site or a Me Too channel or a Me Too website. So I would say if there's something that we really want to be aligned with or as a target, that would be Linus Tech Tips.
Yeah. So that's your most influential.
Yeah, I think he's our most admired content creator. I would look at him as a content creator. Who wants to dig into, to deep dive into what they're really doing and the way they approach it. It's very raw, but yet it's very detailed. It's very authoritative.
All right. So On the technology side, what do you think the technology can do to help fight this COVID-19 right now? So the situation right now. So
I think I think there's an app or there's a platform that was used by the Singaporean government. It's like contact tracing. It's an app that uses Bluetooth and GPS, so that people who have been either infected or under investigation or under monitoring can be easily traced via their smartphones. And I think that's the best way. If the government or the Department of Health has access to all these PUIs and PUMs, we can easily identify and isolate them so that we don't need the very costly effects of a lockdown or community quarantine. By easily and quickly identifying them and isolating them from the rest of the community, we minimize the rate of infection, and at the same time provide for mobility for the rest of the uninfected, or for the rest of the population. I think that would be a key technology in order for us to easily and to quickly combat the threat of COVID-19.
that's fantastic. So my last question before we wrap it up. In 2020, today is 2020 compared to 2002. What is your help in tips or advice to the new aspiring content creator?
I would always tell people when they ask me this that always look for that need. Don't just create it based on what you think you want to provide. You want to add to a sea, an ocean of already existing content. You always have to look and ask yourself, is there a need for this? Because there are a lot of treatments, there are a lot of styles, approach in creating content. But if you focus on the need, regardless of your delivery or regardless of your personality, people will always look for this. So I always advise that base your approach on the need, and is there a gap in the existing pool of content out there that needs to be filled up, and is that gap big enough for you to survive and to thrive in a way. Otherwise, you'd be duplicating what is already out there. And unless you're much better than existing ones, it's really hard to penetrate this industry, especially that almost everyone can be a content creator.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for your time for the podcast. So if you want to, if you have any other question about technology side back in the Philippines, so I'll put all the link below so that you can check YugaTech and the new second channel that they're doing right now. So, and also email them. They're happy. Are you happy to, if someone send you a message to have some question?
We get hundreds of questions and emails from a lot of people, and we make sure that as much as possible we're able to respond to all of them.
All right, thank you so much. So thank you so much. So this is another episode of Guerrilla Podcast. It's a fresh eye. It's a member of Guerrilla Podcast Network. If you love the show, please like, subscribe, so you can listen to Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes as well. Thank you so much. See you for another episode again. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted in Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or via RSS. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and if you want to know more, check out kangaroofern.com.